Hey, John Gilroy here. Big data is a phrase that emerged in about 2015. It is fading because everything is turning into big data. Today, how to protect data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. Today, we're going to talk with Pure Storage. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. We are recording this interview at Baltimore Convention Center with a company called Pure Storage, and our guest is Greg Carl, Principal Technologist at Pure Storage. Greg, how are you?
Doing great, sir. Great to be back with you.
Good. Well, that little silly opening about big. You remember in 2015, everything was big data.
The biggest data.
And now people say, so what? Everything's big data, isn't it?
It really is. And what's interesting about this, and I love stats, right? I love numbers. I love data about data, metadata, if you will, right? So 394 zettabytes is what the industry has estimated the amount of data to be generated by 2028. Right now in 2025, we're less than half that. We're actually closer to zero than we are to that number. So it's going to become an exponential crisis in the next couple of years. So companies have to come take a step back and saying, instead of initiatives, how are we actually going to solve a problem? We don't have a problem for all this data we have. How can we use it more efficiently long term? And more importantly, how can we get value out of that data? And that's where we come in and help a lot of customers.
When I took those silly CompTIA tests, I had to learn megabyte, zettabyte, Yoda. Is that the next one? Yottabyte, is that the next one?
Yep.
Wow, it's going to be incredible, isn't it?
It's fascinating. It's just fascinating the way things are growing at a scale that, I mean, we're pretty close on this from an industry perspective. Right back in 2012, we said, hey, around 2022, we're going to be right around 100. It's startling how close we might be. So it's not just a matter of, looking at databases or looking at unstructured data. We're now generating data from different sources. We're now generating data about data. AI, another ingest data pipe, right? I'm now ingesting that data into using RAG or whatever technology you want. I'm generating more data about the data on top of the data. So we've compounded this problem, but we haven't actually solved it yet.
So we are here at TechNet Cyber, sponsored by AFCEA. And every booth has got some kind of security talk, isn't it? I had lunch with a guy from DISA. We talked about security at DISA and the federal government. So if you talk about a hamburger stand in Chicago, they have to worry about big data. But here, the big data has to be very, very secure. So my question to you is, in this world of rapid change in the federal government, people migrating systems, hybrid cloud, alt cloud, how can you do the first one, protecting data at rest?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like we've had to have longer conversations with a lot of customers about taking a step back from how they are managing and maintaining data at scale. So when we look at foundational challenges, how can I have a consistent platform that has, all the certifications you want to have, right? From a NIST, NIAP validation perspective, obviously FIPS 140-3 is table stakes if you're going to operate in the defense space. But what else on top of that? What about how do we handle our own emission controls within our own system? How do we interoperate with other external systems? Do we have consistency and secure communications? Zero Trust has helped push a lot of that through. And from a data perspective, for every CIO and CISO I've talked to in the federal space, no matter where they are, the data pillar is the most challenging one to really solve for Zero Trust. You can solve everything else with a product, right? When you look at a larger cohesive strategy, this is where we can come in as kind of the trusted leader from a Gartner perspective, at least, when it comes to data management and strategy at scale.
And you're no stranger to the federal government. I read a statistic this morning that you folks are in 175 federal agencies, so they must know Pure Storage.
Very familiar, but always growing every day, because let's be honest, the federal government isn't always bleeding edge. And a lot of times when it comes to internal infrastructure, adoption of cloud, no problem. That's more of an initiative. That's kind of changing processes. When we talk about modernizing at scale, and actually, there's been some current events that have forced some introspection about, hey, am I being cost efficient with my long-term storage and data management? So when they look at a company like Pure, who, when we started 15 years ago, we didn't start to have another product in the storage industry. Our founders founded this company to change the data storage industry as a whole, to change and give a different offering for capacity, for density, for being able to solve multiple business challenges instead of with boxes, with larger overarching solutions, what has now evolved what we call our enterprise data cloud or enterprise data platform.
when I think of data protection, and we go to 100 different companies here on the floor and talk about data protection, and I think what's happened is that people are realizing, yes, we're going to get attacked, but we have to have some kind of a strategy to recover. And so this goes hand in hand, data protection and how to recover. In fact, one of these agencies, I was listening to a podcast with a CIO from the Indian Healthcare Service. His name is Ben Kashi. And at the end of the interview, he said, so what's the most important thing when you protect your data? What's the most important thing? He said, the most important thing is to have an accurate backup, because we know we're going to get hit. We got to have that backup. So you have to work in the world of backup as well as protecting data, don't you?
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach we take, right? Because anyone can back something up, right? Anybody can go, take your treasure and, bury it in your backyard, if you will, right? Because when we talk about, sometimes we heard like data is the new gold, data is the new oil, none of those kind of buzzy phrases. But if you want to actually protect that, what do? Do you put it under your pillow at night? Well, of course not. Somebody can get to it. Do you put it in your backyard? Well, sure. But what if you need to get to it? Same thing with your data. What good is your data being there if you can't actually recover to it? So we have this concept that we call work recovery time. So instead of talking in metrics like RPO and RTO anymore, when we talk about cyber resilience stance, we're no longer looking at just, hey, do I have the data and can I recover it? That checkbox is no longer good enough. And thankfully, the federal government is looking at things like real enterprise. I need to have the resiliency at multiple tiers and be able to recover quickly, efficiently, and keep the mission online, keep the agency up front. I don't like to use this phrase lightly. Sometimes it impacts lives, depending where you're hitting in the federal government space. So a tiered resilience model is definitely part of the core components of what we have here at Pure.
And if you look at the word efficiency, well, it's hard to set back and talk about it in abstract form, but let's say you have an agency and they get attacked, they have to recover, and the recover is incomplete. It could have the ransomware still inside it.
Sure.
And so people are talking about immutable recovery, because if you recover once with an immutable backup, you're going to be back in business. If you can't recover validly, then it's going to be step and repeat, and waste hours and days of an agency's job. So the most efficient way is to do it with an immutable backup, isn't it?
Yeah. And one of the larger overarching strategies we have with this concept of enterprise data platform is looking at data holistically, meaning not just copies of data anymore. How is it stored? What is the policy? What is the governance? What are the business inflicted or imposed upon rules that I have for a particular data set? So when I look at something like, regulations for industry, SEC 17A4, for example, right? Having to retain things for X amount of time, HIPAA regulations, right? It's like, yeah, I have to retain it, it has to be there. But what if that becomes infected? When that becomes exposed? Data exfiltration has become a big topic and concern as well. Data immutability can't solve for that as well. But what it can solve for is knowing a good known state where I can have a clean state to recover from. And there's some really interesting things we're doing, working with some of our partners as well, on getting better introspection, saying, hey, at what point I understand I've been attacked. Okay, what is the old rule of 1, 10, 60, right? You want to be detected within 1, find out what they're doing within 10, get them out within 60 from a cybersecurity perspective. But in that time, where do you find your clean space? Where do you find where, hey, I know I can recover cleanly here? That's the real risk mitigation, right? The tools, the the cybersecurity aspects, the networking aspects, table stakes, 100% should be there. I think the federal government's pretty good at it. But how do we make sure we're still up and running and resilient? That's the challenge folks are still trying to solve for. Immutability helps that exponentially.
I'm thinking about Pure Storage. You folks have a conference coming up in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. What's it called again?
Accelerate 25. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, and it's free, by the way.
Free of charge. Yeah, you can come out. I'll be there presenting myself. But we have a lot of great topics from SMEs learning not just about our products, but our stances on, hey, what's Pure's take on, hybrid cloud mobility or modern virtualization or cyber resiliency, kind of like we're talking about now, but actually interacting with our customers, interacting with our partners, having real-time education, certifications. Like it's a fantastic event. And, if you're Pure customer, heck, if you're not even a Pure customer, come on out and check it out, because we have a lot of cool stuff to share and a lot of really, really smart people that want to talk to you.
Now, data management, yes, I get it. But we're at a federal cybersecurity conference, and maybe some people may pigeonhole Pure Storage and go, yeah, efficient fast, a lot of new blade technology, hybrid cloud, reliable, well-known, but they may not categorize you in cybersecurity with it, but you're right in the middle of it here.
It's great. I love that the cybersecurity lens has expanded so broadly, right? It used to be very network-centric.
Right.
I think zero trust architecture approach has changed a lot of that. So when we used to talk about like backups or recovery, now it's all looked at a holistic process, which is fantastic because we do that very, very well working with partners and giving our customers different levels of that like tiered resilience like I talked about before. But no matter where they are on that journey, we can still offer the same experience. That's kind of one of the core things we do here at Pure is that making sure wherever you are on your journey, if you're, 100 arrays wide and you have a whole fleet of storage and utilizing almost to an autonomous level of generating, large-scale operations within a single autonomous fleet, or you have a couple of our boxes in a data center and a colo, or heck, maybe you're just operating in the public cloud, can I have the same experience and capabilities? And that's one thing where we're very obsessed about is making sure our customers had that same look and feel every single time.
When I did the open for this interview, I talked about data in motion, and I was listening to you talking about exfiltration. I said, well, exfiltration, that's data in motion, isn't it? It's the wrong way.
It's not the way you want it to go. It is, in fact, in motion, right? Yeah.
But there is a concept of protecting data in motion. I guess most with migrations, what I'm assuming here, moving things to cloud. Is that right?
Yeah, so data in motion has a lot of layers to it, right? So we talk about hybrid cloud mobility, and data mobility has become a kind of a conversation piece as well. But it goes to a larger conversation about application rationalization, where customers' end state of applications reside, and can I say, hey, can I have an instance of this running within the public cloud and maybe fail it back on-prem, or maybe can I burst it up? So I'm giving an example, like an agency like the IRS. Can I grow up over tax peak season and then scale down over time? Great concept for cloud economics, but how can I have that same consistency and scalability, be able to have the same look and feel no matter where it's running? And that's one of the things we help bridge the gap very well with our Portworx offering. But what's really cool is that, it's giving our customers a different way of saying, all right, it's either public cloud or on-prem. It's one operational model or the other. And I love that we're finally coming around. I've been with various vendors over the years, and I'm partners, and we've been saying for years and years, the cloud is not a place, right? It's an operating model. This is where it's becoming very apparent to agencies, MilDeps especially, of I can now operate in the cloud model. I can consume it on-prem, but I can have the agility, the resiliency, all the verification of knowing where the data is and knowing the data flow is back and forth.
We have a new executive order here, and it's that you have to talk about artificial intelligence every 32 seconds, or you're not going to be allowed to do any podcast. It's required. It's a mandate. So we have to bring up the topic of AI. People think that they can set up an LLM and everything's great and it's fine and dandy, but there's issues involved with the correct data and retrieving that. And so enter stage left, Pure Storage. That's one of your sweet spots, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we've had some really cool innovations in regards to this because AI has definitely opened up the data problem like we were talking about earlier. Hey, where is the data? Has been classified correctly? Have I leaned too much into data gravity? Where am I starting the impetus of all this? But one of our large innovations we're going to talk about a lot more at Accelerate, hint, hint, come on out and see us in June, is our FlashBlade Exa platform, where we're taking the best of both worlds of density, performance, and real large-scale AI training and modeling to the next level. It's kind of an industry-first sort of model where we can scale metadata and data independently of each other. And John, we actually haven't found the high watermark of how far we can go with this cluster yet. We're not talking about hero numbers. We haven't hit the top of the mountain, which is kind of fascinating for something, that 394 zettabytes is coming pretty fast. I mean, we might have a helping hand in that, but we can also have a helping hand is giving consistency and performance and scalability, but also the security aspect. Is it resilient? Is it recoverable? Is it secure? Is it, data at rest encrypted? And giving, different experiences for true large-scale AI training and inferencing. So whether it's, hey, I'm going down the path of adopting an LLM, or I'm, using RAG for development, or if I'm looking at, AI governance, I think is going to become a new hot topic here coming soon. Can I have a way to have visibility and control of all that? That is the biggest thing that I'm so glad to see that larger agencies are adopting of, hey, we have chief data officers. We are, most importantly, adopting a policy that can meet the demands of modern AI because it is the fastest growing technology that has ever hit any industry, federal government included.
And if you're listening to this and walking your dog, go to federaltechpodcast.com, type in Pure Storage, and I'll put a link to that event in the show notes, so you can just sign up right there pretty easily. This morning, I went to several different sessions here at Tech CyberNet, and one of them was on DevSecOps, and he talked about being agile. And it's nice to talk about agility, but, if you're agile in one cloud, it's one thing, but if you're agile in two clouds, it's another thing. What if there's, how can you be agile in managing data when some is on site, some is legacy, some is a hybrid cloud? This is too confusing.
Yeah. Agility is not based on any one specific platform. It's actually more of an operational constraint, right? So there's this whole paradigm of, to have any successful project in an organization, it's a triangle, right? It's people, process, and technology, right? If you have imbalance of any one of those three things, it's kind of fall over, right? So I'll give you an example. The thing that we used to talk about years and years ago, even outside of federal, was the concept of shadow IT, meaning someone could get the company credit card, swipe in AWS or Azure, pick your poison there, and say, hey, guys, you're not going to believe this. I was able to scale our application 5x than we could on-prem. Can you believe this? And then the bill comes due. And then what they say, someone's got to pay the piper. And it's 20x of what you're expecting it to be, or 40x what you're expecting it to be. Yes, you can, but should you? And it's forced organizations to say, okay, at what cost do I need this agility and scale? And in some cases, they've had even more introspection on, okay, am I able to meet the demands that I need to meet when it comes to growth, scale, but at the same time, not sacrificing security, compliance, governance, et cetera, so I can still maintain that triangle of people, process, technology. So as folks are growing new applications or I want the agility of the cloud, but I want the stability of on-prem, we're able to help our customers do that with a lot of features we have. As I mentioned earlier, we're kind of leading into a concept of what we call autonomous storage. It's going to be something you read a lot about more in the coming year or so. But being able to have a truly fluid data mobility fabric, just like you could have within the public cloud on-prem, with the same governance, compliance, and large-scale capabilities you would have within any hyperscaler. And heck, don't take our word for it. Meta has adopted this approach as well. They're actually sourcing our direct flash module technology direct from us to help kind of re-rationalize their hyperscaler business as a whole. They realize they can't keep up with the density of data growth. So agility is easy to do. Agility with consistency, not so much. Anybody can go 100 miles an hour in a straight line, but take a right turn. See what happens. If you don't have the right tires, you might be flipping over.
My wife and I went out to dinner with some friends, and their daughter just got admitted to Penn State. And we talked to her and said, well, what's she going to study? She's going to cybersecurity. I turned to her and I said, what's cybersecurity going to look like in 4 years? I mean, do we even know? Can we use an ink pen or a pencil or just put it in a chalkboard, because it's going to change so much? And in the next few years, I mean, this young lady is putting herself into like a hurricane or something, isn't it? I mean, she may look back at me and go, zettabyte? Wow, you're really
yeah.
4 years
like we talk
from now.
about floppy drives, right? Yeah.
I mean, so what advice would you give her? Well, don't put anything in ink.
And that's the funny thing is understanding the concept. The tools are always going to change. The threats are going to evolve over time. The concepts and constraints, and that's why it's so important that when you're understanding an organization, because cybersecurity is so much more than the tools or hacking or whatever you want to say out there, right? It's understanding the business and understanding the business risk model, and then applying different practices and policies around that. It's a very unique blend of understanding policy, understanding people, understanding technology in a very, very unique way. My degree's in cybersecurity, right? It's the same sort of impetus of, it's a very much a blended approach of understanding policy management, but the landscape of cybersecurity is going to be much, much more aggressive. And I say that because things are coming up the line. AI is going to completely shape, and has already started to reshape, the cybersecurity landscape, kind of bringing it all back together, right? When we start talking about post-quantum cryptography, that's also going to change the lens of cybersecurity as well. It's kind of terrifying. When AES 256 goes down, it's going to be a bad day for everybody. So cybersecurity as a whole is definitely going to be, we're all in this together, really. But for someone 4 years from now, you got to keep your ear to the ground and be ready for anything. Know not just the tools and processes, but also understand the new threat vectors. Bad actors is one thing, but autonomous AI agents that know how to launch multi-threaded attacks across every single vector of an enterprise, that's a reality that they're going to have to deal with.
So I think she is going to have to understand this concept of resilience, and maybe she's going to agree with the CIO saying, look, we're going to get beat up, we're going to get attacked, and we have to just figure out how to bounce back, and what system can we use, what's going to be fast enough to be efficient. And you step in and go, hey, let me show you this blade, EXA, huh? I mean, that's exactly what we said.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all part of how we align to mission and business outcomes. Hey, I need to be able to be resilient, because I think just about everyone has accepted it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, that you are going to get breached, you're going to get compromised, it's going to be ransomware, it could be somebody clicks the bad link from, hey, did you click here to start your Amazon return, and all of a sudden, game over, man, as they say. So it is really just that matter of, not a matter of if but when, but building out proactive, a layered, tiered resilience model is what we do very well with our customers. So they understand that. So they said, okay, understand, we know we're going to go down. However, how quickly can we restore, or can we mitigate that completely? And how much are we willing to invest down that path as well? And that's where cybersecurity professionals are going to become paramount, of marrying up the business risk that they're willing to take versus the technology and tools that are available out there.
So now we do the stump the chump part of the show, where in the booth next to us, I'm looking behind you, a little over your shoulder, and it talks about compliance with CMMC and FedRAMP. And I wrote down this is compliance. I say, okay, now, Mr. Pure Storage, so I would assume that there are requirements for backup, and there's requirements for speed of access. Does Pure Storage help a typical agency in the area of compliance?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different ways we help out with that. First is we have, obviously, we have policies we can put in place within our infrastructure to make sure, this can't be deleted for X amount of time, or patient records can't be deleted for 99 years. Whatever the policy might be, we have adaptable policy for that as well. Or we have some hard lines that say this cannot be deleted. It's immutable for X amount of time as well. Taking that a step further, when we start talking about compliance outside of that, what we're doing in that concept of, I'll bring it back, of autonomous storage, and with our Fusion platform, is where we're going to start being able to enable compliance at the inception point. So instead of saying, hey, I need to make sure this data is retained for X amount of time, as a workload is created, I can now have a predefined workflow that works with all other aspects of my DevSecOps platform to say, I know the security and compliance I need will be applied to this. And oh, by the way, I can now do it programmatically, and it's going to be pushed out and maintained on the storage side as well. So now I can now have this true approach of an enterprise data cloud, because the experience, the capabilities, the compliance aspect, I can now have a global view, but I can also tie it back to other industry third-party tools, things like, Varonis, or if you're partnered with Rubrik or Veeam or Commvault, whatever it might be, we can give you that extensibility, or heck, even CrowdStrike, and have that same look and feel all the way across.
Yeah, it's just you take for example, this young lady's going to be a freshman at Penn State studying cybersecurity, and she may have a class on data management here, And
I guarantee it.
It's like it is the linchpin. I mean, that's what they talk about pillars and zero trust, and this pillar got 6 pillars and 7 pillars, but it has to begin and end with data. And I think if you look at it from an amplified perspective, you can see, yes, managing data correctly can help you efficiently recover, can make you efficiently handle compliance, which is, I was kind of pushing on that one because it's literally over your shoulder. I mean, FedRAMP, and you can, yes, this is how we can do it.
It is. And it's interesting to see that the Fed space is adopting a more modernized approach of when we look at compliance and certifications, and really own agencies and, middle desks being able to say, have a little more say. Instead of having an overarching body, here are the requirements I need. So if I want to be more agile, I'm making sure I'm adhering to certain tenets. I know we talked about zero trust and pillars, and there's a great quote from Dr. Amy Hamilton. She's been on a lot of panels with here, and she said, we shouldn't have called it zero trust architectures. It should have been called data-centric architectures, because it's actually all about data, right? It's nothing about trust. Like that's kind of the old model of trust but verify, but now it's really about the data. And we're definitely paramount in that. So whenever it comes to, long-term compliance, retention, business models with resiliency all the way across, by at the same time, hey, that's great. We're not going to stop everything else we're doing just to make sure we're compliant. We're also innovating and making sure we're maintaining scale for our, foundational applications, the SQLs, the Oracles, wherever they may reside, the AI initiatives, no matter where you are on that journey. So that data growth is going to keep happening, but now I can introduce a layer of consistency, compliance, compliance and automation that has never been seen before in the data services management, especially not in the storage industry with Fusion.
We're going to close out with just you giving a little tip in here about this FlashBlade X architecture. And I went to your website this morning and saw a press release on it, but it didn't really hit me. I mean, I think it's a drastic increase, but someone like you can explain to the audience. So why is this X? Why is it so different? Why has it got that punch?
So the great thing about true large-scale AI is that they always want to find the ceiling, John. They always think, all right, how can I break it? All right,
how fast can the car go?
How fast can it go?
Can this motorcycle go? Yeah,
exactly. So it's great, but can we make sure as it's growing, we don't hit that tip over point where I can keep going and going and going? Oh, I kind of tipped over. EXA is solving that problem for true large-scale AI hyperscalers or hypergrowers, however you want to kind of phrase that. Folks that are not just doing, hey, I have a RAG and I'm doing a chatbot. These guys are doing large model training. I'm talking about they need 3.4 terabytes per second of throughput in a RAG. That's something we can do with EXA. And maintaining that same scale, the same namespace all the way across. Things where we start talking about some of the national labs. We start talking about, some private contractors that are doing parallelized work with the GovSpace, within NASA, within the DoD and, the Fourth Estate sort of places. They're talking about data sets that are at that exabyte scale. They need a solution. They can't just, duct tape a bunch of systems together and hope for the best. They need the scale of something like the cloud. EXA can give them that, but also the performance, resiliency, and capability. So it's really all about true performance without compromise. And it's just unparalleled. It's just fascinating. The fact that we haven't even hit the high water mark just blows my mind.
We'll see what happens next year, huh? We'll come back.
We're going to see, right? We're going to keep pushing.
Brand new cyber threats, that's for sure. Unfortunately, here we are running out of time. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Greg Carl, Principal Technologist at Pure Storage.